everyone. Apologies in advance for any dogs snoring in the background. I am in Exmoor National Park. Beautiful place, worth a visit. Hell of a drive from anywhere civilized. They got some old money English people out here. Wild ponies, dogs, cats, horses, you name it. Some quick admin. No interesting or funny feedbacks from the previous episodes, unfortunately. But we did the top 5 with Sylvia of countries that listen to this outlet. So there's been a change in the top countries that we receive listeners from. And interestingly, Australia, which is an English-speaking country, has been replaced in the top 5 by Norway. And I don't really know very many people in Norway. So this may be organic. I appreciate very much all you Norwegians out there. I don't know what exactly in your diet or culture or water supply makes you particularly aroused by somewhat overweight men of dubious nationality and intellect. But nevertheless, we're appreciative of it. And share with your friends. We want more Norwegians. Maybe you've even deserved, this has made you maybe even deserve an episode. What's interesting in Norway, there was heavy water in World War II that my brain says has something to do with the atom bomb and the Nazis trying to develop that. I don't know. It was a hydrogen bomb, probably with heavy water. I don't know. Somebody send in a comment on that to talkingasspodcast@gmail.com. Or anything else that's interesting in Norway. Nature, whales, polar bears. Ooh, maybe it was the polar bear thing. Yeah, with the episode with Kara about treating that polar bear victim. I guess that would make sense. Well, welcome Norway anyway. Or good morning Norway, as Sylvia would say. And this dog will not stop snoring. I think there's something wrong with it. And another piece of admin. We are now available on YouTube. Shockingly, YouTube actually is trying to get into the audio-only podcast space as well. It's very clever. You just submit your podcast and they create a static video just with the cover art. So there's nothing to watch there yet. We'll see about in the next season of Talking As what we'll do with video. But some people have said that it's not always easy to share, even if they want to share like a certain timestamp of a podcast, because you have to send it to a friend and then they have to, on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever they're using, like, hey, firstly, click on this thing that you've never listened to before, then go to 13 minutes and 42 seconds and listen to this idiot. Like, they really do let anyone have a podcast these days. So that's a bit tricky to do. Therefore, on YouTube, you can just send a link to people's phone and then it opens on the browser and they can just scroll to whatever point they want. Or I think maybe you can share directly a timestamp even. So that is something. Good, bad, I don't know. I haven't made up my mind on video anyway. I like talking into the ether, old school, like pirate radio. Which, speaking of pirate radio, all the Trump and Elon Musk cuts have cut Radio Free Europe or whatever they're called, and Voice of America, Radio Free Asia. All these, basically this Western propaganda channel that would pump in alternate world views into authoritarian countries or to populations whose governments are adversarial to the West. And seems like something pretty goddamn useful, right? Because Qatar has Al Jazeera and China has TikTok and everything else, and even Putin has RT and all that. So it seems like this was a good thing to have going on. But yeah, I think that's shut now, so we can all shed a tear. Well, listen to this radio. What are we going to call it? We're going to call it Radio Free the Cayman Islands. How about that? Radio Free Islands. And speaking of Paradise Islands, a little geopolitical note I wanted to talk about. Obviously, the war in the Middle East has resumed, and obviously wild reports of casualties, and then actually weirdly Hamas itself reduced the number of civilian casualties they were claiming. Apparently there's some protest within the Gaza Strip against Hamas, so apparently the local population isn't believing their bullshit either. Anyway, that's very sad. The other interesting thing in that region, to get back to Paradise Islands, is that there is a one that you may have never heard of called Diego Garcia. And no, that's not a soccer player who got caught picking up a transgender prostitute in Barcelona or something. Diego Garcia is a British overseas territory in the Indian Ocean, and it's part of something called the Chagos Archipelago. That's a group of islands. Archipelago is a fancy word for islands. And this has been a joint US UK military base since forever, since the 70s or something. And even though even I had never really heard of it or don't remember going down this Wikipedia rabbit hole, but it was actually for the war in Afghanistan, for example. The US bombers who did a lot of the bombing sorties to the Middle East actually left from there and returned to there. We're talking long distance strategic bombers, right? Not some kind of air support like reacting to infantry on the ground. Most likely not. Those were probably on aircraft carriers or in Kuwait or something. So Diego Garcia, there's been talk in Iran with all these negotiations that will probably fail and a potential strike by the Americans against the Iranian nuclear program. I think it goes without saying that a nuclear Iran would be a goddamn disaster for everyone. And any American attack there, by the way, the retaliation would probably be against Israel, because I don't think the Iranians can take on superpower like the US. But this Diego Garcia thing is fascinating because there's been talk in Iran about a preemptive strike, because this they think will be a main base for things like B-2 Spirit bombers and other strategic bombers that the US has. And if the Iranians could knock off Diego Garcia Island somehow, then that could even the playing field a little bit in a confrontation between the West and Iran out there in the Mideast, in the Orient, as they used to call it. We're not allowed to call it that anymore. But remember, this is radio-free Cayman Islands. We're free to say whatever we want. You want to look at how much it costs to fly to, what was his name again? Diego Garcia. These days when you Google anything, Google will throw you normally the flight times and cheapest price on top. But this, no such things. I believe there are no commercial flights going to Diego Garcia. If you can find some, please send them in. talkingasspodcast@gmail.com. And fuck it, if you can find some that are reasonable, I will look into going. And maybe we can live stream the war from there. Wouldn't that be a coup? Anywhere else on the Chagos Islands? Let's see. Chagos Archipelago flights. Let's see if we have anything. There are no commercial, the AI overview on Google says, there are no commercial flights to the Chagos Archipelago and access is restricted. And I mean, these places are beautiful. Just look at the images of these things. I mean, all you have now, obviously, with the recent news is images of jet fighters if you Google these places. But wow, it looks incredible. Wow. So anyway, if you haven't listened to our episode with Richard was a British paratrooper who was sent to by the British to all these paradise islands to quell uprisings and things like that. And I was making a joke that all these paradise islands, they were real hotspots of activity because the British didn't want to give them up. Well, here's one that I don't know if there's been any wars fought over it or uprisings or anything, but another junction in history where Paradise Island, weirdly, is kind of at the center of a major confrontation. Obviously, we don't take sides, but in general, we would like the West to win. So I guess we take sides. All right. Listen in on Sunday. We have the episode with Will Farr, who is an expert in autism and special education needs and things like that. Great, super smart guy. So that will be released on Sunday for you. And in the meantime, let's press all those buttons. Goddamn dog started barking, so I'll finish. Press all the buttons. Liking, subscribing, comments, send emails, and all that. Review and share with a friend. One friend, because if you're a listener, that means you're my friend. And a friend of a friend is just somebody that I'm waiting that he or she will become my friend. You see? So share the love, and maybe in this case, spread the damage around so it's not all on you. All right. And how do we end these days? Say your prayers.